Hello folks, this is Pastor Mike Hoggard, pastor of Bethel Church in Festus, Missouri, and head of prophetic research ministry with another Watchman video broadcast. I brought something with me today that I don't know if you ever noticed, but I usually keep this just kind of over to the side. I'm used to carrying this thing around, and I'm going to talk about this for just a minute, here in just a few minutes. I hold in my hand a computer. Now, some say, well, that's a cell phone. This is actually a computing device. I remember the first computer I had back in, way back in 1982. The very first computer I had. Before that, I was starting to become fascinated with the idea of having my own computer. You see, I grew up in the 60s and 70s and 80s. And during the 70s, I can remember watching a Disney film called The Computer Wore Tennis Shoes. And it was about, interestingly enough, it was about a young man that, I can't remember exactly the movie, but it had something to do with the computer lab of this university in California. All these movies are made in California. And but anyway, he worked in this computer lab, and all of a sudden he was like melded in, or this computer had joined with him somehow, and he just was this fantastic brain. He could think like a computer. And if you remember back from the 70s, these computers filled up entire buildings, just for these one computers. I watched a movie that I had not seen in years last night called Tron. And I think there's like a remake or a sequel of that coming out here before too long. This came out in 1982. Here again, another Disney movie. And it showed basically a man being pulled into the computer world and doing battle against the evil, the central, whatever it was, the main program that ran all of the other things, like the computer Antichrist is what it was. 1982 was about the year that I had my first computer. Now, I had read things on it, seen these movies, been dazzled by TV shows and science fiction, and I remember getting my very first Commodore VIC-20 computer. And I was amazed at this thing. Here it was, a computer in my room, and I could tell it to do things. And I remember I had envisioned at that time being able to take massive whole encyclopedias and typing them in article by article into my computer, storing it in there, and then being able to ask my Commodore VIC-20 computer any simple question, and it would ding, 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 and come up with the answer for it. Well, my Commodore VIC-20 had a whopping 3.5 kilobytes of memory. And it stored all of the data back then on a little cassette tape. And it took forever to load one of these programs in. You had to press play on the tape, and boy, you just had to wait. And so I didn't quite see my dream quite fulfilled of what I thought a computer should be. I remember years later, finally I could get a disk drive, one of those floppy disk drives. $300 I paid for this thing. And then I remember seeing it in a computer magazine. I could buy a 1 megabyte hard drive for my Commodore 64 computer. See, I upgraded. And I was going, 1 million bytes. This is amazing. The very first IBM style PC I owned was somewhere around 1992, 1993, something like that, preloaded with Windows 3.1, an 85 megabyte hard drive, and 2 megabytes of memory, and I thought I was in heaven. We've progressed a lot in this world since then, and I now hold in my hand a computer. And this computer, if I remember right, this is a Samsung jack, and I think it operates at about 300 to 400 megahertz, which, our average desktop PC is blazingly faster than that, but not bad for a small handheld device. But this computer operates somewhere around 300 times faster than the Commodore VIC-20 I had. It has somewhere in the neighborhood of about 2,000 or 2,000 megabytes more memory than my Commodore VIC-20 had, more storage ability, more computing power, more software than I ever had, more programs. And I finally have the ability right here in the palm of my hand to load up the internet. I got Internet Explorer here, and I can load that up if I got a Wi-Fi signal somewhere. And I can ask the internet any question that I want. And through the millions of interconnected computers all across the world, I can get an answer to that. I can find out exactly where I'm at using Google Maps on here. And the triangulation that cell phones are, they're like the little coordinate things, and find out exactly where I am anywhere on the globe. This is absolutely amazing, the technology that we hold in the palm of our hand that we actually take for granted. We've come a long, long way since 1982 when I had my first computer, and it's just absolutely amazing. I can make telephone calls, all of which is done digitally. You see, the computer takes my voice and turns it into numbers, zeros and ones, and transmit it through a wireless signal. I can receive messages from, here's one from my wife, a text message. Can't ignore that for too long. But anyway, this is the technology, and this is old stuff already. I mean, this phone's about a year old, 2 years old, something like that. And it's already ancient stuff. We're going to talk about technology. We're going to talk about something called the singularity in this broadcast. And I want you to understand, if we have progressed this far in this world as far as electronics is concerned, where are we going in the very near future? We're seemingly changing like every 6 months. We're doubling our knowledge of the universe. So I want to read some articles, and we're going to talk about what's called the singularity in this broadcast. And here is an article that somebody sent me, and this is really what got me going with this. So if you sent me this, I appreciate it. And I'm just going to kind of read this article through because I think it has some very interesting things that we need to look at. The article is called, from PC World, it's called Better Living Through Implants. Imagine if you could learn to fly a helicopter by downloading software directly to your brain. We saw that in the movie The Matrix. Imagine if your eyes could see an object overlaid with data miles away in the dark. These science fiction scenes from The Matrix and the Terminator movies may be less fictional in the future thanks to the fascinating science behind medical implants. Interdisciplinary teams of surgeons, research engineers, computer scientists are creating complex electronics designed to work within the human body to simulate human functions. Today's bionic technology helps people suffering from disease or disability and may pave the way to a future where the blind can see and the deaf can hear. Researchers have achieved breakthroughs in medical science, but the level of improvement these advances offer doesn't approach the level of typical human sight, sound, thought, or movement. But implants are getting better, faster, and smaller. And experts say that they could be used to augment healthy human performance within 5 to 10 years. A look at the current research in medical implants shows not only unprecedented potential for curing diseases, but also, and here's the word right here, a new paradigm for understanding human potential. Now stop right here. That word is seen, I don't have a copy of it here, that word is seen in Marilyn Ferguson's Aquarian Conspiracy. The new paradigm is something that you'll see in the Purpose-Driven Life movie. You'll see in the New Emerging Church. This whole concept of a new paradigm or a paradigm shift is something that we're seeing everywhere. We're seeing it in corporate logos. We're seeing it in advertising, marketing. We're seeing it in the church nowadays. All of a sudden, everybody is talking about in different ways and in different styles, but they're all talking about some sort of transformation that's going to take place. A new paradigm, a shift in the way that humans exist. The article talks about having bionic eyes. I don't know if you remember the $6 million man. He had bionic eyes. We're on the verge now of creating an interface between the human eye and the brain that would allow people with faulty eyes not only to see, but we're also on the verge of allowing people who can see normally the ability to see beyond human limits. This is where we're headed. The article talks about brain-computer interfaces, giving people who cannot speak the ability to speak. Brain implants, body implants, the article talks about. Performance-enhancing body implants, so that there is a fusion of technology and humanity. This is part of what is known as the Singularity. Now, I'm going to read you an article about what the Singularity is and what it involves. And I know not everybody is technically minded. I kind of am, but there's some things that I don't get. I mean, I use technology. I mean, I'm using my cell phone here. I'm using a microphone here hooked into a digital camera. This camera is taking my image and my sound, and it's converting it into zeros and ones. And when I get done, I'm going to take this and download it into my computer. Well, let's see, that would be uploading. I would upload it into my computer so I can edit it. And then when we're done, I'm going to put it on a digital versatile disk, or I'm going to transmit it digitally to the internet so that you can get on your digital interface device, which is a computer, and watch what I'm doing here in our secret broadcasting compound. We are using technology everywhere, but this technology and people's understanding of what we're able to do with the smallest and simplest devices is growing exponentially. And it's leading to the part of human evolution that they call the Singularity. Let's look at this article. What is the Singularity, and will you live to see it? If you read any science fiction or futurism, you've probably heard people using the term singularity to describe the world of tomorrow. But what exactly does it mean, and where does the idea come from? We answer in today's Backgrounder. The term singularity describes a moment when a civilization changes so much that its rules and technology are incomprehensible to previous generations. Think of it as a point of no return in history. Here again, a paradigm shift. Most thinkers believe the singularity will be jump-started by extremely rapid technological and scientific changes. These changes will be so fast and so profound that every aspect of our society will be transformed, from our bodies and families to our governments. Remember, we are living in an age right now where we have a president who campaigned on the idea of transformation, fundamentally transforming the United States of America. We're looking at churches now that are promising transformation to everybody, and these are usually outside of the cross of Jesus Christ. We're living in a world right now where we can literally see the transformation of everything in this world into a completely new world order. That's what the singularity represents. The article goes on to say a good way to understand the singularity is to imagine explaining the internet to somebody living in the year 1200. Your frames of reference would be so different that it would be almost impossible to convey how the internet works, let alone what it means to our society. You are on the other side of what seems like a singularity to our person from the Middle Ages, but from the perspective of a future singularity, we are the medieval ones. Advances in science and technology mean that singularities might happen over periods much shorter than 800 years. Talking about the singularity is a paradox because it is an attempt to imagine something that is by definition unimaginable to people in the present day. But that hasn't stopped hundreds of science fiction writers and futurists from doing it. Where does the term singularity come from? Science fiction writer Werner Vinge popularized the idea of the singularity in his 1993 essay, Technological Singularity. There he described the singularity in this way. It is a point where our old models must be discarded and a new reality rules. As we move closer to this point, it will loom vaster and vaster over human affairs until the notion becomes a commonplace. Yet when it finally happens, it may still be a great surprise and a greater unknown. What technologies are likely to cause the next singularity? As we mentioned earlier, artificial intelligence is the technology that most people believe will usher in the singularity. Authors like Vinge and singularitarian Ray Kurzweil think AI will usher in the singularity for a twofold reason. First, creating a new form of intelligent life will completely change our understanding of ourselves as humans. Second, AI will allow us to develop new technologies so much faster than we could before that our civilization will transform rapidly. A corollary to AI is the development of robots who can work alongside and beyond humans. Another singularity technology is the self-replicating molecular machine, also called autonomous nanobots, gray goo, and a host of other things. Basically, the idea is that if we can build machines that manipulate matter at the atomic level, we can control our world in the most granular way imaginable. And if these machines can work with their own. And finally, a singularitarian thought is devoted to the idea that synthetic biology, genetic engineering, we're going to talk about that, and other life sciences will eventually give us control of the human genome. Two world-altering events would come out of that one. We could engineer new forms of life and change the course of human evolution in one generation. Two, it's likely that control over our genomes will allow us to tinker with the mechanisms that make us age, thus dramatically increasing our lifespans. Many futurists, from Kurzweil to Stuart Brand to science like Aubrey de Grey, have suggested that extreme human longevity in the hundreds of years is a crucial part of the singularity. So in other words, this article is explaining to us that the things that we see going on right now, the rapid evolution of electronics and electronic devices and artificial intelligence, is one of these days, they say it's going to change all of the rules and then give mankind the ability to change his own DNA, to rewrite, as David said, in thy book, he's referring to God, all my members were written, which in continuance was fashioned when as yet there was none of them. David was describing, by inspiration of God, 3,000 years before Watchman and Crick discovered the DNA double helix. David was describing the human genome, or DNA. In thy book, he described it as a book that God wrote. And I believe, just as God wrote this book, God wrote the book of our DNA. In fact, God is the author of all life. Everything that has DNA in it in this world, in this universe, God wrote that book. And there are rules concerning that book. God said, you shall not add to nor take away from the words of the book that I have written. And so here we have man now who is getting smarter. He seems to think he is getting smarter by the day, and now is on the verge of the ability to rewrite his own DNA, making him into something that in his eyes is going to be far better than his own humanity is at present time. Here is an article concerning Intel. We're making steady progress toward Ray Kurzweil's singularity, says Justin Ratner, CTO of Intel. The singularity, that's what he's talking about. You know, the point where machine intelligence jogs past human intelligence and brings us to a new era where combined computer cognition is the equivalent of a minor deity. What is the singularity really? It's where machine intelligence surpasses human intelligence, even by just a tiny bit. At that point, the machines, which are now more knowing than we are, can recursively improve on themselves in a never-ending and rapidly accelerating cycle of getting better and better. Kurzweil tones it down a bit and simply says it's going to be a time where machines can manifest their own rapidly advancing technology. The implications of a meteoric rise in technology, self-replicating, smarter than human intelligences, and super beings, it's all still there though. Perhaps in Intel's mind, the singularity involves computers designing processors for their next of kin to the point where we have the 1nm Intel processors featuring 10,000 cores. The article goes on to say, is this something we really want to work towards? Is it inevitable? And will these machines become self-aware? No one really knows, but it's certainly an interesting concept to think on. Congratulations, Intel. Stating that they are actively working on the Singularity goes a bit beyond miniaturizing processors and coming up with interesting ways to optimize code for multiple cores. It's a bit like casually stating that your experiments on Family Dog have yielded a Doberman with the intelligence of your or I and the ability to speak several languages. Here's an article dealing with Singularity called Waiting for the Rapture. Now, you're going to like this. Technological convergence will change our lives but won't make them indefinitely long. Across cultures, classes, and aeons, people have yearned to transcend death. Now, I'm going to stop right here because that is the very thing that the serpent promised Eve in the Garden of Eden. We're going to go back to that here in just a little bit. But you remember she said that she told Lucifer, she told the serpent, Eve did, that if she ate of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, that God told her that she would die. And yet Lucifer said to her, ye shall not surely die. He was giving her a false hope of immortality. And so anyway, people have yearned to transcend death. Bear that history in mind as you consider the creed of the Singularitarians. Many of them fervently believe that in the next several decades we'll have computers into which you'll be able to upload your consciousness, the mysterious thing that makes you, you. Then with your consciousness able to go from mechanical body to mechanical body or virtual paradise to virtual paradise. You'll never need to face death, illness, bad food, or poor cell phone reception. Now you know why the Singularity has also been called the Rapture of the geeks. In other words, now this concept of the rapture is interesting because we believe in the translation of the church. In other words, people who are living on planet Earth at the Lord's appearing will go from this world to the next into a transformed body without ever seeing death. And this is what's being envisioned by who they call geeks. But these are serious people, my friend. The ability to transcend mortality and human beings given the chance to live for hundreds, maybe thousands of years, breaking the cycle that God laid down in the Scriptures. And you have to wonder, who's behind it all? Who is it that is actually feeding the technology and the ideas? If we can't imagine them, where are these ideas then coming from? Think about familiar spirits and think about the inspiration that devils and demons have given mankind over the thousands of years that man has been on this earth. This is what we're dealing with, people. Mankind transcending humanity to become a God. Here's an article called Signs of the Singularity. Hints of the Singularity's approach can be found in the arguments of its critics. The article talks about the AI scenario, or the artificial intelligence scenario. We create superhuman artificial intelligence in computers. The IA scenario. We enhance human intelligence through human to computer interfaces. That is, we achieve intelligence amplification. The biomedical scenario. We directly increase our intelligence by improving the neurological operation of our brains. Now, I want to stop right here, and I want you to think about something for a minute. I want you to think about what it is that you had for breakfast 3 days ago. It's kind of hard to think about that. It's kind of hard to remember. We know we did. We could kind of remember 3 days ago, but to remember what we had for breakfast or what song we were listening to on the radio 4 days ago as we were going to work or we're going to the store or going to whatever. And yet, with the Singularity in place, with the ability to implant devices into the human brain that would record every single thought, action, sense that we have so that we could draw from them in a near perfect way and remember every single thing that we experienced in life. This is what we're talking about, the ability to become godlike in our perceptions. He talks about the internet scenario. Humanity, its networks, computers, and databases become sufficiently effective to be considered a superhuman being. In other words, a superhuman being would be the entire collective of every computer that's linked into the internet. And here it is. Here's an interesting, this is what really got me going. It's called the digital Gaia scenario. The network of embedded microprocessors becomes sufficiently effective to be considered a superhuman being. Look at this website called the Digital Gaia. This is about digital creations. I think this is a company that does graphics for people and so on. But it's called the Digital Gaia scenario, or the Digital Gaia effect. And what is Digital Gaia? Gaia, if you remember from our study on the goddess, Gaia is the spirit that connects all living things. She is the mother and protector of them all. So I want you to get this idea. In fact, if you saw the movie I, Robot, you saw the digital Gaia. When they went through the whole scenario in I, Robot of who was guilty of taking over all the robots and making them these evil drones that did the bidding of this super intelligence, when they found out who was behind all of this, it was a female artificial intelligence. This is the Gaia syndrome. She was and had interconnectivity with all of the electronics all over the world, especially the robots, and she made them do their bidding. She was in charge. Now we understand from the Bible this whole Gaia thing is her real name is Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. She is the one responsible for bringing all of the world governments together as one. She is the one, because of her ability to interconnect everything. This whole concept of Gaia worship is that you believe that the Mother Earth gives life to everything, and that we are all brothers and sisters. You know, all the little plants and all the little animals and all the little humans. We're all children of this one mother who connects us and brings us all together. Isn't that nice? The Gaia concept is the concept behind bringing all of the churches and all of the world's religions together in one religion, worshiping the earth goddess, Diana, Gaia, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. And I'm going to show you this connectedness by a new thing that's coming out for Xbox here in just a little bit. Freemasonry talks about the brotherhood of all mankind. In other words, they're longing for the day when men will truly be unified. They will be uniform. They will all be the same. I'm talking about the brotherhood of mankind. I want you to notice this out of Revelation chapter 17, which gives us a description of this Gaia syndrome, Mystery Babylon the Great. Notice what it says. There came one of the seven angels which had the seven vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, and I will show you the judgment of the great whore, that's Gaia, that notice that she sitteth upon many waters. What are these waters? Revelation 17 verse 15. And he saith unto me, The waters which thou sawest where the whore sitteth are peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues. In other words, it's showing here that she is the one that is uniting everyone together by her domination. When you sit on something, you dominate it. She is dominating over every critical aspect in this world to bring it all together as one. And so the Gaia concept in this digital world is that we have all of these devices in the world that are interconnected. Devices in even the most mundane things like refrigerators and televisions and satellite boxes and your cars and your cell phones and your iPods. It just, for some reason, every new gadget now that comes out has to have the ability somehow, some way of connecting with everything else. This is the new paradigm in electronics. And this is the Gaia concept, so that when all of these devices coming together, the hypothesis is that they themselves will be some sort of new super being, almost godlike. This is a scary world that we live in. Because while these futurists imagine that this is going to be some kind of great way of making the world at peace and harmonizing with one another and everybody getting along, we tend to leave out one very important thing. And that is the fallen, wicked nature of mankind in his flesh. Mankind becoming a god in his mortal body will not be a good thing. it won't. Look at this article called The Energy Roadmap. IBM's vision of a smart planet expects sensors and software to launch era of smart infrastructure. Mark your calendars. The business case for smart infrastructure has been made by one of the world's biggest companies. On November 6, IBM CEO Sam Palmisano delivered a speech at the New York Council of Foreign Relations. Imagine that. Palmisano highlighted Big Blue's vision of a smart planet and the tremendous near-term opportunities in building out that global smart infrastructures for energy, water, information, transportation of people and goods. By the way, this is not just about being smart, it's about control. This is why this was done on the Council of Foreign Relations. This is about controlling every single thing that happens on the planet through this smart infrastructure. The Gaia syndrome is what it's called. Palmisano echoed a vision described by visionaries and futurists long ago of a digital planet. Now we might expect broader endorsements for smart infrastructure by mainstream businesses and policy leaders, especially in the United States under the Obama administration. We can also build more reliable forecasts and roadmaps based on expectations for investments. Remember, money is a big part of this. And application of technologies that improve the flow of traffic, more efficient energy grids, wider access to clean water and food, improved personal safety, and more secure information flows around financial governance and healthcare information. See, that's interesting because not part of the healthcare bill, part of the stimulus package that was passed by Obama and the Congress last year had a thing in it where there was all the medical records were going to be digitized, interconnected. And this is the goal of the New World Order. Here's quotes from Palmisano's address. What's making this possible? Number one, our world is becoming instrumented. There will likely be 4 billion mobile phone subscribers by the end of this year and 30 billion radio frequency identification tags produced globally within 2 years. Sensors are being embedded across entire ecosystems, supply chains, healthcare networks, cities, even natural systems like rivers. By the way, articles coming out this week that in some states it's against the law for you to collect rainwater. Because now the new law, the new paradigms, the new laws are gaining control of every drop of water that exists in the United States of America. How are they going to do it? Electronically. Second, our world is becoming interconnected. Very soon there will be 2 billion people on the internet, but in an instrumented world, systems and objects can now speak to one another too. Think about the prospect of 1 trillion connected and intelligent things. Cars, appliances, cameras, roadways, pipelines, even pharmaceuticals and livestock. Third, all things are becoming intelligent. New computing models can handle the proliferation of end-user devices, sensors, and actuators and connect them with back-end systems. Combined with advanced analytics, those supercomputers can turn mountains of data into intelligence that can be translated into action, making our systems, processes, and infrastructures more efficient, more productive, and responsive. In a word, smarter. Imagine that. Not just, you've got a cell phone. It wasn't until just a few years ago that I got a cell phone. My wife got a cell phone. She wanted one because she traveled back and forth a lot to work. She wanted something to get in touch with me in case a car broke down or something like that. And it was a bag phone. You remember those? This big bag you carried around, you stuck in your car, and you picked up the receiver, and it was a monster. Now these things are teeny tiny, and they're getting smaller every day. And now nearly 2 billion people in the very near future are going to be carrying something like this around, communicating one with another. Social networking is another thing. We are literally changing the landscape of humanity right now with all of this technology. Now, somebody sent me this. They said that their son works for Microsoft, and he was, this is not some super secret project they're working on. The video is on YouTube. It's called the Natal Project, which actually is the Natal Project. The word natal means birth. And I want you to think about something being birthed into this world, a new world order. He favors the birth of a new world order. That's the Natal Project. And I want you to listen to the beginning of this, because this is something I've been working on for years, and it's going to come out, I think, this November with the Xbox game systems. And I've got something to say about that here in a little bit. But I want you to listen to the guy as he introduces this Natal project, and listen to the words that he's using to describe this. Take a listen to this.
You know, I want to just say one thing to you, and that's the word interactive. Surely we've been making interactive games for 20 years, haven't we? Or 30 years? Well, no, I don't think we have. Because that thing in our hands, that thing that's evolved in our hands and got more and more complex and got more and more buttons, actually has been the biggest barrier to what we want to create. Because what we want to create is a connection to our worlds. And that's what I believe Natal does. And if you leave with anything today, then leave with this thought. What designers and what this industry does with Natal will change the landscape of games that we play.
Notice he's talking about the way we interface with these game machines, which are computers, has evolved. He's talking about the world that we are creating. And then he talks about the ability to connect the machine world with the human world. Now this is, it's an interesting thing that they were showing in this video, was this new way of interfacing with this computer called an Xbox, where instead of, I go back to the 80s, and I had one of these Atari joysticks, and it went forward, backward, left, and right, and it had a fire button. And I thought, this is so cool. Okay. This year for Christmas, I bought myself one of the newer, what I call the newer joysticks. And this thing has way too many buttons on it for me, and I'm using both hands, and I don't know how to operate the stupid thing. So I haven't used it since then. We have a Wii system at home, and you take the little thing in your hand and you swing it, and this little radar thing picks up your motion. But now the Connect project, it's called. Don't you think about that? The Connect project, you don't need anything like that at all. You just move and the computer knows, because now they have the ability to see you. They can see your face, recognize it. They can recognize your speech. They can probably even at some point be able to read your lips without you saying anything. They're getting smarter and smarter every day. And this has to do with the connection of the two worlds, or the fusion of mankind. This is one step closer to the fusion of mankind with electronics. And it's going to allow men to become gods. Now, I want to show you a clip now from a video that somebody sent me called Technocalypse. And this video, it's kind of scary, but this video, there's a guy here talking about the singularity and the fusion of electronics and humanity, transforming men into gods. And I want you to listen to what he says. He's talking about not only does he want to become a god, but listen to what he says about his own personal godhood. Take a listen.
We are going to become gods. Period. If you don't like it, get off. You don't have to contribute. You don't have to participate. But if you're going to interfere with me becoming God, you're going to have big trouble. And we'll have warfare. The only way you can prevent me in this 50 year is to kill me. If you kill me, I'll kill you.
If you try to stop him, there will be a war. Those who are pushing this godhood agenda, and this didn't just come up in the last 5 years. This goes all the way back to the beginning. I believe the Bible has all the answers. Even now, you'll not find the word cell phone in the Bible. But what you will find is this concept of why men want to become gods and who is behind the conspiracy. Genesis chapter 3 verse 1. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said unto the woman, notice that I have his words underlined and bold. Yea, hath God said, ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden. And the woman said unto the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God has said, ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. And the serpent said unto the woman, here are his words again, ye shall not surely die. He's promising her immortality. or the possibility of becoming an immortal. For God doth know that in the day that ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. The devil promised mankind, and that promise is still in effect today, giving mankind the potential to become gods. Now, we have the New Agers going around talking about it all the time. I remember John Denver did a Life magazine interview several years ago back in the 70s when he first became famous, and he was part of Werner Erhard's seminary training, and he was being taught by this New Age guru that he would become a god one of these days. Didn't work out too well for him because he was drunk when his airplane crashed into the sea. So it didn't work out too well for him. But New Agers have been talking about gods. The Mormon Church talks about becoming gods by sacred marriage, by fusion of the male and the female together. But there's something interesting about not only what the devil said, but how he said it. Recorded for us in our King James Bibles. Look at these verses again. The words that we have underlined and emboldened here are the exact words that the dragon or the serpent spoke to Eve. You count the number of words here, you will have exactly 46 words. Now, if you don't know what that number is, I'll explain it to you here in just a little bit. Here is something that I'm going to add to it. Genesis chapter 11, because we are building a New Age Tower of Babel that is going to elevate mankind into godhood, into the heavens. And so in Genesis chapter 11, they said one to another, Go to, let us make brick, and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime they had for mortar. And they said, here it is, their quotes again, Go to, let us build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. And so you know the whole story of the Tower of Babel, how they were trying to achieve heaven or try to achieve godhood by their own efforts. And God had to come down and put a stop to it, because God said anything that they have imagined to do, they'll do. Because the Bible prophesies that in the last days, knowledge shall increase. And we are seeing knowledge increase exponentially right now. But the interesting thing here is in Genesis chapter 11, look at their words again. Here again, you have exactly 46 words that are being spoken here. What does that have to do with anything? Here is the DNA molecule inside of these little packages called X chromosomes. Every cell in your body has these X chromosomes in them, and they have the DNA, which is the book of your life. Remember, the book that you're not supposed to mess with. The book that's not supposed to be rewritten. And there just happens to be, not by any chance whatsoever, but by the design of God, there happens to be exactly 46 of these chromosomes in your cells where your DNA is stored. And so the idea here is that man, and we read this earlier, that at some point the singularity is going to allow man the ability to rewrite his own DNA, thus achieving godhood. Now, that's interesting because the fact that we have 46 chromosomes where our DNA is stored, in the Old Testament system, we had a tabernacle. This was the dwelling place of God. This, by the way, is a picture of the human cell. The tabernacle wall is the cell wall. The sanctuary there is the cell nucleus, where the 46 chromosomes are stored. And by the way, inside of this sanctuary was the Word of God, the written Word of God, the book that God wrote. It was the law that God gave to mankind. Incidentally, and I believe by the design of God, on this tabernacle structure, you had 20 boards that framed up the north side of the tabernacle, 20 boards that framed up the south side of the tabernacle, and then you had 6 boards in the back of it. So the very framework of the tabernacle was 46 boards, matching perfectly the number of chromosomes. Paul said in the 46th book of the Bible, 1 Corinthians, he said, Know ye not that ye are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you? So God says literally that our bodies, every chromosome, every cell in our bodies is a picture of the temple, the tabernacle, the place where God dwells. And God said, if any man defile the temple of God, him shall God destroy, for the temple of God is holy, which temple ye are. So we're to be careful when it comes to the body temple that God designed and God created, not to augment it, add to it, or take away from it. Now I want you to think about that and what the temple of God is. So now we know what the temple of God is. It is our bodies. Let's now look at 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. Let no man deceive you by any means. For that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and the man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. This is the Antichrist, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he as God, here it is, sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. He literally, this Antichrist literally is going to reign on the inside of every human being, because that's what the temple of God really is. Let me show you this. Remember what those X chromosomes look like. Let me show you this in visual form. This is called the skull and the crossbones. Now in the occult realm, the skull is a symbol for death. Now I want you to get these because we have opposites here. Christ is the symbol for life. He's the Lord of life. The Antichrist, his opposite then would be the Lord of death, or the symbol of death. And so the skull is a symbol of the Antichrist. So take a look at this image. We have the X chromosome featured by the crossbones, and we have the skull added to it. This is a picture of the Antichrist reigning inside of the very temple of God, our very chromosomes, right inside of our DNA. Something is going to be added to man's DNA. What does this have to do with the singularity? I want you to notice again this symbol, and then take a look at an electronics company called Singular Wireless. The idea that billions of people are now going to be interconnected. And you know, these are kind of cumbersome. Have you ever tried to drive and have one of these cell phones stuck in your ear? You ever tried to write something or hold on, hang on, I can't, or have you ever been one of those places where, hang on, I can't hear you. What? Kind of cumbersome. And cell phones sometimes really make me mad. But the technology is just around the corner to where this is not going to be here and here. It's going to be here and here on the inside of us. That's why this company was called Singular Wireless. Just this week, I saw this commercial, and several people sent me a link to this. Here is another wireless company, a company that is connecting everybody together through electronics, bringing us into the singularity, Verizon Wireless. And notice their new ad campaign is called Rule the Air. Now, several weeks ago, we did a thing on our Watchman broadcast about this new movie coming out called Avatar: The Last Airbender. By the way, Avatar is the fusion of gods and men together. And this airbender is someone who has power over the air. They can rule over the air. Where does that concept come from? It comes from the Bible, people. Ephesians chapter 2, wherein in time past you walked according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that now worketh in the children of disobedience. Folks, that spirit who is the prince of the power of the air is that spirit of Antichrist that is working right now through the children of disobedience. And here's another interesting thing. You go to Verizon's website and look at this whole Rule the Air website, and you have all of these people here who have these waves around them, or these halo images. And what is the image of a halo? It designates someone who has the sun god in them. It designates someone who is a god himself. Go back to this image. Look at it. These people all have halos around them. Hence, they have all become gods, and they have the power to rule the air. think again of this X chromosome symbol that we looked at with our DNA in it, and that being the focus of all of the conspiracies that we're looking at here. And now look at this game machine called the Xbox. And up until now, it really to me hasn't made a lot of sense why they named it the Xbox. Until now, this new paradigm, this new way of connecting with the computer world it was called the Natal Project or the Natal Project. Now it's called Connect, and the variant spelling has to do with kinetic energy and motion being what connects us with the computer world. And so already games and applications are being developed that make use of this new technology. And here's one. This is interesting to me. This is on the Connect line, and it's for the Xbox, and it's called Your Shape Fitness Evolved. How many other things in this world have to do with evolution and the transformation of mankind? By the way, take a look at the symbol located here, Your Shape Fitness Evolved. We're going to talk about that. What does this have to do with this idea of Connect? What is the truth behind it? The fact that the fourth kingdom that Daniel talked about. In fact, let's look at the scriptures here. Daniel chapter 2, verse 42. And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, the iron is the fourth kingdom, the miry clay is mankind, they shall mingle themselves with, look at here's the word here, the seed of men. The seed of men is a Bible phrase for his genetics, his chromosomes, his DNA. That's what this is about. This fourth kingdom is not a kingdom of this world. They are principalities, powers, rulers of darkness, spiritual wickedness in high places. These are spirits. This is a spiritual kingdom. The gods who are going to connect with mankind through his X chromosomes where his DNA is stored. That's what it's all about. How many things now are we, when we look out into the world, do we see things talking about connect, connect, connect? Especially in the church realm. The new paradigm in churches is to marking themselves somehow, some way with this idea of connect. Here's one church, Peninsula City Church. Notice their logos. The X chromosome and the skull with it. Back to this Xbox Connect game, Your Shape Fitness Evolved, that symbol is what's referred to as the triple helix. Take a look at it. This was theorized originally by Linus Pauling, who about the time of Watson and Crick decided that human DNA actually had 3 strands and not 2, making it a triple helix. Of course, he was proven to be wrong, but some scientists are getting together and they're thinking, now wait a minute. We are 2 strands of DNA, but wonder what would happen if we figured out a way of adding a 3rd strand to man's DNA. Hence an article coming out of Scientific American, Triple Helix, designing a new molecule of life, literally taking man's 2-strand DNA and adding a 3rd strand to it. That is the meaning behind the Triple Helix logo, behind the logo here that is on the Xbox game. That is the meaning behind the capstone and the unfinished pyramid. In the world of the occult and Freemasonry, the unfinished pyramid represents man's 2-strand DNA. It isn't complete in their eyes. It needs to have something added to it. What's added to it? The eye of illumination, or the eye of Lucifer himself, the Antichrist, being added to it. And this then gives birth to the new world order. Now, we referenced earlier this image that Nebuchadnezzar saw in Daniel chapter 2 and how it symbolized the 4 kingdoms, and the 4th kingdom being a connection, a fusion between the spiritual world and the human world inside of their DNA. In Daniel chapter 3, Nebuchadnezzar actually builds the image into the form of an idol, and it's, of course, 60 cubits tall and 6 cubits wide. It has these 6s all over it. We just recorded a video called Revelation 666. It will be coming out, and I will explain to you why that number 6 is used there. But here's a sort of an image an idea of what that image actually looked like. And you remember in Daniel chapter 3, according to the scriptures, according to the commandment of Nebuchadnezzar himself, that at the time when all the people heard the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and all kinds of music, all the people, the nations, and the languages fell down and worshipped the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Remember, Paul had prophesied that when this time was coming, that there would be a falling away taking place. And boy, you can just imagine the scenario. How is it that you're going to separate who's really going to worship God and who isn't? Well, that was pretty clear in the plain where Nebuchadnezzar set this image up, because everybody else is laying down on the ground except three guys, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. That's how you're going to be able to tell who's on whose side in these last days. But they fell down and worshiped this golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. This is a perfect illustration of what we find in Revelation chapter 13. The false prophet deceiveth them that dwelleth on the earth by means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword and did live. And he had power, look at this, he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. That's exactly what Nebuchadnezzar said. Anybody that doesn't worship this image that I set up, they're going to die. They're going to have to be thrown into the fiery furnace. We know the rest of the story. But it's a prefiguring of what is going to happen in the last days. And folks, right now, the imaginations of mankind are imagining a world right now where a beast is going to take over and an image, an idol, is going to be worshipped as the true God. And I found an interesting verse. I found this several years ago, and it was one of those things that just made me sit back, and I've been pondering these verses ever since then. The idea that not only mankind would worship an idol, a statue, something made of stone, but he would actually become that. Psalm chapter 115. But our God is in the heavens. He hath done whatsoever he hath pleased. Their idols are silver and gold, the work of men's hands. Now I'm going to stop right here. This right here is the work of men's hands. Of course, it's not an idol yet, but this is where we're headed. This is the work of men's hands. And when we're talking about the singularity, we're talking about what mankind is able to do with mankind rather than what God is able to do. Remember the Tower of Babel? They said, let us build a city and a tower. The truth of it is, God already has a city. It's called New Jerusalem. And He already has a plan whereby that city will come down to mankind. Man doesn't have to do it. But you know how man is. Man is going to build his own image, his own God. They have mouths, but they speak not. Eyes have they, but they see not. They have ears, but they hear not. Noses have they, but they smell not. They have hands, but they handle not. Feet have they, but they walk not. Neither speak they through their throat. In verse 8, and they that make them are like unto them. So is everyone that trusteth in them. In other words, those who worship the idol are going to be like the idol. Similarly, those who worship the true God are going to be like the true God. This Bible is absolutely fascinating because people are racing toward their own godhood and their own destruction in this world. And it's happening fast, very fast. Who knows when the paradigm shift will actually take place? But more than likely, in our lifetime, we're going to see this happen. Are you ready? What are you trusting? See, we like to trust machines. We like to trust pharmaceutical companies. Not a good idea. We like to trust doctors. I don't have anything against doctors. I don't have anything against certain medications. But I'm telling you, we're putting all of our trust in things of this world. And eventually we're going to end up putting our trust in mankind. And God says, trust me. So in this same chapter, Psalm 115, God said, O Israel, trust thou in the Lord. He is their help and their shield. O house of Aaron, trust in the Lord. He is their help and their shield. Ye that fear the Lord, trust in the Lord. He is their help and their shield. Verse 17, the dead praise not the Lord. No, they're out worshiping an image of the beast. Neither any that go down into silence. But we will bless the Lord from this time forth and forevermore. Where's your trust? Where's your trust? There's part of me, I look at the technological advances that are going on in this world right now. We're using technology right now to spread the gospel all over the world, and I think it's absolutely fascinating what a world we live in. But I'll tell you, mankind is about to run to a barrier that God has placed that he should not cross. And yet, man, you know how we are. We're like children. When our parents say, don't go in there, that's what we're going to do. And mankind is about ready to bring about his own destruction by way of the singularity. I, however, and you, however, should trust the Lord. And here's what I mean by that. They're talking about giving the president and certain people in the world an off switch to the internet. And, you know, while that worries me a little bit in that we wouldn't be able to get our Watchman broadcast out, I can tell you that for thousands of years, people stood with the Word of God in their hand and they preached it without technology. I like to search the Scriptures on my computer, on my word search program, and look at it. But I will tell you that if I lost all of that tomorrow, I could still be old school here and just read the Bible. Herein lies my trust. What is it that you're trusting in these last days? We got our Watchman packets going out this week, and also we have our homecoming, August 6th, 7th, and 8th. Man, we have got stuff that we're going to be presenting here. I hope that you're able to make it. I hope that you can come down. If not for just maybe a day, you could travel here and you'd go back home. Be back in time for work on Monday morning. But man, we would love to see you here. And so I want to encourage you, try to make arrangements if you can to come visit us here at Bethel Church August 6th, 7th, and 8th. And we are looking forward to seeing you here. This is Pastor Mike. I love you. God bless you. We'll see you the next time on the Pure Bible Study. Bye-bye.